We're fighting a battle. We're singing the same song, trying to find someone who cares as much as we do. We're climbing the ladder while we're sinking in this boat, trying to find someone who cares.
Hello and welcome back to O Babble Scribbler, the strange podcasty type show. Today I am joined by a member of the analysis community. He has been doing fanfic readings for quite some time as well, and therefore today he's going to talk with me about fanfic reading in the fandom. And you probably already know him the moment he talks.
Greetings and good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Wolf, and it's lovely to be here, Scribbler. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, glad to have you. You have been reading fanfics for just over a year now, haven't you?
Probably, yeah. I think I started in February of last year.
Yep. So in the 12 months, you've gone from purely analysis community into the creative side of fanfic readings. What prompted you to start reading fanfics on your channel?
Well, I suppose in part it was because I was working with you on a couple of dramatic readings. It was a couple of months before that point where we had been chatting via YouTube, and you had said that you were always looking for more people to do dramatic readings with because you need a lot of variety of voices in all the stories you do. And you had introduced me to a story called A Twilight Dinner Date, where I would get a chance to really change my voice and go down to a really low growl the entire time. And I thought it was a lot of fun trying to do that, and I've been looking for a chance to use my voice in a different medium, and it turned out so well, I kept thinking to myself, I don't really know what I'm capable of, but I'm going to get at it and see what comes out. And I've always been trying to figure out how much else I can do and how much more I can push myself just for fun.
Oh, yeah, it's always good to have that element of self-challenge, especially when it comes to the fanfic community, that it's always a case of trying to better yourself and trying to exceed what you've done previously, both in writing and in readings. You've chosen quite a variety of things to do readings of since last February. You've rather moved beyond the Bat Pony that you started off voicing.
The Bat Pony was a ton of fun. And quite frankly, I don't know if I've ever done any dramatic reading where I've had to change my voice quite that much as that first one I did with you.
Oh, you have to resurrect him at some point.
Well, I don't know how we're going to resurrect him at some point because, I remember messaging the author on FimFiction when that story was first coming out saying, hey, are you going to do any sequel to this story? And I don't know if he ever has.
Definitely.
He said he was thinking about it back then, but I don't know if he ever did.
Ooh, I'd have had to check that one out. But in the event that he hasn't, anybody listening, if you'd like to write us a sequel, we wouldn't mind.
Yes, that was a lot of fun, and I would enjoy taking on that character again.
Yeah, it was fun. I must
Not to
admit,
mention you pull off a very convincing Twilight, I have to say.
Oh, thank you very much. I would disagree with you, but thank you. But I had a great deal of fun editing that one because, as you know, I put in music and sound effects, and that was the first time I ever had to use a random swallowing sound effect for the blood drinking scene. And I had a lot of messages from people saying, I was fine up until the point that I heard him swallowing her blood, and then I felt a little bit sick, or I was fine listening to him swallowing her blood, and it really added to the effect, and I loved editing that scene. It sounds really bizarre and a little bit disturbing, but I loved provoking that visceral reaction just from the use of music and sound effects. You've actually begun using music in your fanfic readings recently, haven't you?
Some of them. You see, I'm still trying to keep up a schedule of releasing 3 to 5 videos every week.
That's quite a
And if
cool
I
one.
want to add in music, and especially if I want to add in sound effects, it makes everything that much more complicated. And sometimes I just have to focus on, it's more important to do a dramatic reading where I can give my voice some good practice and try to keep moving on to the next project rather than trying to make that particular project with the most dramatic music and the most perfect sound effects. But I'm trying to add some variety here and there. One of my more recent stories was
The Folly of Celestia?
Folly of Celestia, yeah. And that was something that Mr. Josh Scorcher had requested I read and give him feedback even before he had released the story. And when I had read through it, I said, I want to do a dramatic reading of this.
Josh Scorcher, is he sounds familiar. Is he a member of the analysis community?
Yeah, he does a lot of analysis and reviews. His character is known as Firebrand.
Yes, I do recognise him. I don't watch that many analysis videos anymore. Rewind about 12 months and I was watching loads and loads and loads of them, but much like you, I have such a schedule that I have to keep up now that I've just moved on to 3 uploads a week of a comic dub, a fanfic reading, and something random. These podcasts usually go out on Thursdays on the something random slot, which rather fits. But because of that, I haven't been watching that much content from other people, but I do remember him. I think I remember his OC as being rather memorable. He has the flames for hair and the leather jacket.
Kinda.
Yes, I do remember him. Oh, I didn't realise he'd written that one.
He had a lot of fun writing it, and I had a lot of fun reading it, and he actually recommended, hey, use these music tracks during the reading. And yeah, that made it a lot easier because looking back over it, it really, really fit. He was thinking about what kind of music would fit with these lines long before I even offered, hey, I want to do a dramatic reading of it. It also turned out to be one of the longest dramatic readings I've done. That was a much longer story than most I've done. It was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of challenge, and that's what I'm looking for in a story every now and then.
Yep, I can definitely see how that one would be a challenge at clocking in over an hour. For those who don't record fanfic readings, I don't think a lot of people realise that for all the content that is in a video, there's probably at least a third more of outtakes or lines that just didn't sound quite right, or just blank spaces. If you pause between lines and you think, nope, that pause is too long, and you take out the blank space. There is a lot more material than goes into the final product, and so fanfic reading can be quite an arduous process, whether you're adding sound effects or not.
Very much so. The way I do dramatic readings is that I will put the story right in front of me, and I will start clicking record, and I will take a deep breath, and I will try to be very concise, and I will try to be change my voice wherever necessary, and absolutely utmost keep my breathing as silent as possible. And it's really, really hard to keep that going for very long because you can't pause too long, otherwise you got to go back and edit it out. And usually when I'm recording, I'll go anywhere from 10 seconds to 2.5 minutes before I have to stop, and I need to swallow. I need to take deep breaths, and I will try to go back and find my space, and I will go back and listen to what I've been doing, and nope, there's a pop there. I got to redo that whole thing. And yeah, dramatic readings, you may think that it's just putting yourself in front of a microphone and reading a story and maybe a little editing afterwards. I'd say that the editing process, having to go back and listen through everything and remove things and redo things, is actually, it adds about 2 or 3 times to what it takes to actually sit and say everything. It really does.
Yes, I agree. The summer 2013, I sort of went on a bit of a recording binge in that I got home from a cycling holiday and was very pumped up and very revved to do lots of dramatic readings. And this was when I was not far past starting myself. I was only about 6 months in, and I recorded close to 100 stories, but I haven't done even half of them because the editing takes so long. Even if it's a simple edit, because, for example, I've done one recently. I only recorded it this week, but it was rather a simple edit that it only required minimal sound effects at the end and mostly just music beneath the narration. It's called Twilight Sparkle Hates Books. And it's not a very long story. It clocks in at just over 10 minutes, and yet the edit for it took 2.5 hours because of making sure everything is perfect. And it's definitely, if anybody's thinking of getting into fanfic reading, you have to have the right sort of pedantic personality to make them work and not sound very amateurish. But you have to have this eye for detail and an enjoyment of taking disparate parts and matching them all together into some seamless whole. That I think a lot of people who try dramatic reading don't realise that that's a part of it, which means that either they get bored very easily or they find that it's just not for them and they will stop doing it after a couple of readings, or will get an inferior product.
Which is unfortunate because anything worthwhile is going to take a lot of practice and a lot of effort, a lot of struggle. And you may not get sounding as good as you'd like to be right off the bat. I mean, even now, I've made near 400 videos on YouTube, and I still am not completely satisfied with where I am. I know I can still get better. And that's something I keep encouraging everybody to think when they're going into their first projects. You can't constantly compare yourself to those that you admire and respect, because they put in a lot more practice than you have, believe me. And they're still practicing, and they're still trying to fine-tune their own methods.
Yes, it's funny you should mention that, actually, because there is an analyst. I can't talk. There is a reviewer, analyst, I'll pretend I said the right word there, called Jill Barrett, whom I watch on Channel Awesome, which is the home of Nostalgia Critic. And she does a lot of popular media reviews, but she recently, in fact this week, brought out a video about natural talent versus concerted practice, and the idea of don't presume that because somebody is good at something that they are naturally talented at it. 99% of the time it's because of practice, and learning from mistakes and not giving up and just being willing to put in an extra ounce of effort when you realise that there is one thing that is maybe lacking, or something that you're not good enough at it yet. You might be passable, you might be adequate, but you're not so at a point where you could say, yep, I'm good at that. So you need to keep challenging yourself. You need to keep practicing. And this video is actually, I'll link it in the description below, because it's worth everybody having a watch of that. It's only about 4 minutes long, but it gives some sage advice about tenacity and not giving up.
I hope more people take a look at those kind of videos and start to realize for themselves, yes, if I want something bad enough, I can make it happen. I have to be patient, and I have to be persistent, and I'm going to stumble and struggle along the way, but if you want it, it will happen.
Yeah, and if you want it enough, it is worth putting the effort in. It seems to be that fanfic reading it used to be, because I started this in 2012, I've sort of watched this evolve, that there was not very much respect for fanfic reading or fanfic readers back in the day, or 2 years ago. And I've sort of watched it evolve a bit since then, and there are a lot more people now who are willing to have a go. I don't know why it has exploded the way that it has, but I was quite fortunate to be on the forefront of that wave, that I started doing fanfic readings at a point where it was beginning to gain popularity. And I find it quite interesting that fanfiction itself does not have a great deal of respect within wider fandoms, or definitely beyond fandom in popular media and the wider world. It does tend to be seen as almost but not quite bottom of the barrel expressions of fan love and creativity. And yet now, largely because of fanfic readings bringing this to people who wouldn't ordinarily go looking for stories to read, they can run across these on YouTube and just watch them idly and realise that these stories actually can be quite well written. Because of that, I get the feeling that fanfic reading is the place of that within a fan community is changing somewhat, in that it's less being seen as piggybacking on somebody else's success and more being seen as an expression of creativity in its own right. Would you agree?
Oh, I personally believe that, yeah, a couple of years ago the fandom wasn't as big, but I would absolutely believe that fanfic readings on YouTube and elsewhere have brought a lot more attention to places like FimFiction, because otherwise, as you've said, people wouldn't be as interested to go even looking for those stories and not even realize, hey, there's a lot of really good stuff here. Unfortunately, a lot of people's first encounter with fan fiction of any kind is the really poorly written Mary Sue O.C. Stories that just make no sense kind of fan fictions. Which is really unfortunate, because there's some fantastic writers who create these wonderful, engaging, and memorable stories, but there's so many lackluster and uncreative stories that surround them. And in the case of fanfic readers on YouTube and elsewhere, they have done a great deal in helping these gems rise to the surface, as it were. And quite frankly, I'd love to see that more of these stories get attention. I know that there have been plenty of my watchers over the past year who have said, I had no idea that a story like this existed. I want to go look there. I got to thank the author. I got to find what else there is. And I say, good. Go out there, find what there is. Maybe you'll get inspired to write something of your own, or maybe you'll start reading some of your own stories on your own YouTube channels. I think it's a good way to spend your free time, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree. That obviously I'm slightly biased, but yeah, I would definitely agree. But it seems to have inspired quite a lot of people to start writing, and actually in the last couple of days we've had a couple of fanfic readers who've become writers. That Neko Nyansa has released his first story, and The Lost Narrator released her first story, and it's wonderful to see this sort of expression of fandom love. And it's Wheels Within Wheels that they were inspired originally to read fanfics because they love fanfics. And now they're inspiring other people to read fanfics and write fanfics. And by the same token, the feedback they've been getting from their fans for reading has inspired them to change hats a bit and become authors. I believe you did something the same yourself with the CMC Meet Dr. Wolf.
In part, yes. That was a story idea that I had been rolling around in my head for a little while. And quite frankly, there have been plenty of people who, ever since I started doing these readings and started putting together analysis videos that talk about, hey, this is what I'd like to see in MLP's future episodes, they keep telling me, hey, you should write a story. You'd be great at it. And I keep saying, I still don't feel like a writer. I can come up with outlines of stories. I can come up with broad ideas, but nothing really cohesive, especially when it comes to character dialogue. But I will say that because of a lot of my fans' requests over the past many months, I am in the process of putting together a Dr. Wolf origin story that I want to turn into a dramatic reading and release on FimFiction, but still in the works. And yeah, I'm hoping to get a lot of artwork that will go along with the story when I'm doing a dramatic reading, so people will be watching it instead of just listening to it. But we'll see whether or not that happens.
Actually, artwork does seem to be taking a level of importance within fanfic reading, and this is very, very recent. This is within the last few months or so that it has gone from just a person sitting by a microphone to the more elaborate audio, and now the more elaborate audio plus the elaborate videos to go with them. That I can think of two that have come out fairly. One of them's just finished, and one of them is still ongoing. One is Princess Trixie Sparkle, and one is Bride of Discord. They were both started out life as fanfictions on FimFic, and their authors have both turned them into very elaborate audio productions. Both of them ending up being musicals by the end as well. And they had tons upon tons of artwork to go with it, and a lot of their compliments came from how well they've integrated artwork and sound design and the idea of a full cast in with it. So yeah, I think we might be looking at the next stage of fanfic reading and what the future holds. Although people should be aware that that's not a given. You don't have to include elaborate sound design and elaborate video design. It can work just as well being a person with a microphone. That one of my favourite fanfic readers to listen to is Goombasa, and he's a long-time collaborator of mine. That he always does fanfic readings of him at a microphone doing all the voices himself, and I still find it incredibly entertaining to listen to him just read me a story, which proves that the power of it is often in the talent of the reader and the talent of choosing which stories to read. That he has excellent taste. That he recently read a story called Flashback, and he actually came on Babble Scribbler to talk about it and to talk about Flash Sentry's characterization, and it managed to inspire us to talk for nearly 50 minutes about it. So the right fanfic with the right reader doesn't always need an elaborate production to be engaging.
I know that that's certainly been true with a lot of your works as well, Scribbler. There is very little happening on screen in the majority of the stories you read, but the way that you engage yourself into all these different characters, the way you are able to become, in essence, this storyteller, and as if no matter where I am, I feel like I'm sitting in front of you in a chair as you're reading it to me aloud kind of thing. you have that presence, and it's a very calm and inviting presence. And that's just all in the voice. You don't need to have visuals in order to enjoy those kind of stories. With that said, though, I will say that for anyone who is trying to start out, if you want to attract new viewers on YouTube for dramatic readings, the thumbnail art does make a difference.
Oh, yes.
What you put in your thumbnail can make a tremendous difference on whether or not a person will give that video a click.
Yes. Oh, yes. I 100% agree on that one. It can entice people to watch your video, or it can drive them away if you've chosen the wrong picture. And you don't always have to choose a picture that has been used if you've chosen from fan fiction. You don't have to use the same picture that the author has used, because oftentimes the picture the author has chosen doesn't entice a listener as much as it fits a fiction on fan fiction for somebody who's going to read the words off the screen themselves. It's sort of a different hook when you have someone who's going to be listening to you instead. What advice would you give people for their thumbnail then, Dr. Wolf? What sorts of things should they be choosing?
Well, first off, if you're going to be doing a dramatic reading, you don't want to have a black thumbnail with a little bit of text on it. That's not going to be very enticing for a new viewer. Now, not everybody is an artist and can come up with their own custom images that will show what the story is about in art form. I'm not an artist, and quite frankly, I wish I had more elaborate art in order to draw in viewers, but since I don't, you can always use specific images straight from the show that help to entice a new viewer, but you have to find one that really, really fits the tone of the story of what people are going to expect to hear when they click that video. There are a lot of different custom images that you might be able to use looking around online, but just keep in mind, if you intend to use someone's artwork, make sure that you get their permission, please. It is important for an artist to know how their work is being used.
And also to check whether or not they have said in the description, please don't use it. Because that catches people out. If you go to a piece of art, whether it's on Derpibooru or DeviantArt or some other site, check whether the artist has said, please don't repost this artwork.
Let's see, what else did I want to talk about today? I remember earlier on you had mentioned that there was one summer where you had literally recorded 100 stories. Mm-hmm. And they're a lot of them are still sitting there unused because you don't have the time to go back over them as of yet. You're working through them one at a time.
Well, some of them I go back and think, oh my gosh, I've improved so much since then, I won't use this one.
And I remember in a conversation we had earlier this week, do you want me to talk about this?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right, I thought I'd check. I recommended that if you were to make a video where you were to say, hey, if anyone out there would like to help me edit some of these old stories because I'm lacking the time to get to them myself, I might be able to release more dramatic readings every week, kind of thing. Now, in my case, I've had a lot of different people help me make all sorts of different kinds of projects over these past couple of years. And quite frankly, I would never have gotten anywhere near as far as I have without the help of so many animators and artists and voice actors and editors and so on and so forth. And I want to encourage Scribbler here that even if she has this perfectionist state of mind when it comes to her, comes to editing her audio, there are cases where people would jump at the chance to help her out.
Control freak. You can say the phrase, I'm a control freak.
If that's the way you want to put it, I suppose.
Oh, call spade a spade. Yes, I am a control freak when it comes to things. Anybody who's worked on me on Heroic Tale or No Place Like Home knows I am a complete control freak. Oh, it took ages for me to be able to even delegate artwork and things on big projects. I've been very glad that I have, but it took a while for me to learn that skill.
So, if you are just a little bit more willing to let go, even just a little bit.
My fingers are embedded into these files now. I've been clinging on that long.
There are a number of old stories that you've read that even if you don't think they're necessarily worthy of your current skills, there are plenty of people who would love to take them and edit them and add music and sound effects. And you can give other people the chance to improve upon their talents. And they can discover new ways how they can contribute to the fandom.
Well, if there's anybody out there who would like the old sound files from my 2013 fanfic readathon, then by all means get in contact and I will give you the files then. And on your own head be it, and blame Dr. Wolf. When you hear the strange bloopers and the oh god damn it moments, and I apologise for the... I didn't swear so much when I was making mistakes back then. I've Lost Narrator has clearly been a bad influence upon me. Although I've been very good with this session because I know that you're not fond of swearing, so I have kept myself very much in check.
I appreciate your efforts in that regard, Miss Scribbler.
Thank you very much. Right, okay, so oh goodness gracious, we've been recording for over 23 minutes. Right, a couple of quick fire questions before we finish up then. So, what do you reckon has been your best fanfic reading so far in terms of skill and what you've been proud of? And what has been your favourite one if it's not the same fic?
The one that required the most skill. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know.
Because I have an idea of which one I would say required the most skill of you. And that was Simply Rarity.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right about that one.
Because you had to get a character voice, and you had to keep it going for a very, very long time. And Rarity's character voice is not easy to do.
It was over an hour long of fanfic reading. And that was one of the ones that I felt so proud of when I finished. I've got to add music in here. I've got to put in that extra effort because this is something I'm going to go back and listen to over and over and over again. It's such a great story that makes you sit back and think. And yeah, keeping up the rarity-isms during so much of that narration, it was hard, but it was a lot of fun too. And quite frankly, I know I'm not a rarity kind of voice, but
well,
having
gender
her,
for one thing.
Yeah, I know. It's just having her her speech patterns, her inflections. They're a lot of fun to attempt. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't sound like the character, you can still create an entertaining performance by giving your own spin on it and just giving some of the isms, but not necessarily the exact tone, I should say. Mm-hmm. And that's something else I wanted to talk about because another of our conversations earlier this week, Miss Scribbler, is the fact that you don't have to sound exactly like a character from the show in order to give that entertaining performance in a dramatic reading.
Yes, I do remember this conversation actually. And it was, I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to talk about it and then you completely forgot about it. You don't have to sound exactly like a character. There was, last year, there is a fanfic series, well, a dramatic reading series called, I think it's Elements of Discord or Elements Discorded. I'll put a link in the description below. And it is an alternate universe look at what happened after Discord had discorded all of Ponyville and the after effects of it. And it's rather a psychological study of the main six plus Trixie and what it was like to live through being discorded and being at the whim of the Lord of the Chaos. And this was written, it was started at such time as Discord had not been brought back in season 3 and he hadn't become this redeemable character yet. He was very much still a villain of the piece. And within that, I'd never listened to it before the 6th episode came out, and I was talking to someone called Malice Scripter on Crisis Equestria Skype chat, and he made a comment that stuck with me and sort of inspired what I said to you, Dr. Wolf. And he said he could take good acting and good storyline any day over show-accurate voices. And he said that he would much rather have someone who didn't sound exactly like the character, but could make him believe the emotion of the piece and have a good story behind it. And he wouldn't care whether or not they sounded exactly like Twilight, exactly like Mr. Cake, exactly like Discord. What he cared about was the spirit and the essence of the character coming through.
Very much so. I was rather worried when I started doing dramatic readings and I would have to voice a character like Discord because I do not sound like John Delancey as much as I try. He is a very, very fun character to watch, but trying to act like him is an entirely different beast. But there were plenty of my watchers who surprisingly said, hey, I love how you voice Discord. It's okay that it doesn't sound exactly like John Delancey. The way you act when you are saying his lines is just a real treat to hear. So in that respect, for all the new dramatic readers out there, you can surprise yourself by doing something you don't think you're capable of doing, but just trying to have fun with it anyways and trying to put in that emotion and the inflections. And you don't have to sound like the character, but you can give your own spin on it and people can still enjoy it.
Yes, that's what he just said. He said it very articulately, so what he said. Yes, I agree. As long as you put some passion into what you're doing, you don't have to sound show accurate. In fact, sometimes people try so hard to be show accurate that they end up sacrificing their acting ability, which is a crying shame, because a fic reading lives or dies by how invested you can be in it. And if you can get people to invest, but you still don't sound like the character, you've still succeeded. Salient lesson. Here we go, lesson for the day. Hashtag lesson. Right. And I believe we're going to have to come to a close now, because we've been talking for over half an hour.
All right. It was a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, it has been. I'll have to have you back sometime.
I'd love to come back.
Woohoo! Right then. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been Oh Babble Scribbler with Dr. Wolf talking about fanfiction readings. Say bye-bye, Dr. Wolf.
I am Dr. Wolf, and as always, I look forward to hearing from each of you.
Links and comments below, and see you next time. Bye-bye.